Gaudi sulgas de technique newsum. Luam Gaudu Gagoidixon. Good afternoon, everyone. My heart is really happy that you're all here. I'm going to get this ball rolling right away. It's showing noon on my screen here, and so I don't want to waste any time getting us started because this is some really beautiful teachings that we have an opportunity to learn today. So, Smoigit, Simgiget, Sigidim Hana'a, Abat Gulk, Tachni Nigiera Geldzap. Our respected chief who is with us, all respected leaders, honored women, young ones, and everyone in this community. Arlene Deptak Duayu, Ganhada Di Pategu, Kitsum Kalam Diwal Watgu, Lachubum Snunemoch Gwa. Toixit Nusum Snunemoch Ayelt Gnu. Haka Thelshanu, language coach with First Peoples Cultural Council. Yagwa Sualaksa Samalgach, Toixit Nusum, Tachni Samalgach Titsisum, Tla Batla Skun, Ada Tla Gwelga Lak Sagyatwan. My name is Arlene Deptak. I belong to the Raven family of the Kitsum Kalam community, and I'm calling in from Snuneymuxw territory, and I feel fortunate to live on Snuneymuxw ancestral lands. I work with First Peoples Cultural Council as a language coach. I am a Smalgach learner, and I'm very grateful to all my Smalgach teachers. Tla Batla Skan. The cedar mat is spread. Tla Gwelga Lak. The fire is lit. A Smalgach greeting that is meant to welcome people and to let guests know that everything is ready for our gathering. And this welcome felt fitting for today's gathering. That was the closest Smalgach meaning that I could find in my research that would indicate to you all my role here today. I'm honored to have been invited as a facilitator for today's gathering, and the virtual mat is now spread and the virtual fire is lit. This is the fourth session of the Language of Wellness webinar series, and today we will be exploring Kwak'wala language revitalization and its relationship with community wellness. This webinar series is held in partnership between First Peoples Cultural Council, First Nations Health Authority, Vancouver Island Region, and Bay Wellness. These partners and community relationships make it possible for us to hear important teachings from fluent speakers and language champions. And I would like to just take a moment to acknowledge the work of the team today. We've got a really great team behind the scenes of this. From First Nations Health Authority, Luke Willem Toixon, Jessica Barudin, Larissa Koser, Sarah Argametto, and Toixit Newsome from Spay Wellness, Marco Cafiero, Kiro Jack, and Farron Charlie. The Language of Wellness webinar is a 5-part series that focuses on Indigenous language revitalization on Vancouver Island. This webinar highlights the important linkages between language and health, with an aim to demonstrate how language learning and revitalization can be a holistic approach to health and well-being. In this series, we highlight 4 of the 6 Vancouver Island languages: Nuu-chah-nulth, Hulk-aminim, Senchothan, and Kwak'wala. You are, just a reminder that this webinar will be recorded and posted for later viewing. And I also wanted to bring to our attention that we are using a Zoom webinar format, which means that we cannot see or hear participants. So you are welcome to connect with us over the chat. Post your questions for the panelists in the Q&A feature at the bottom of your Zoom screen. There's one that says chat and then one says Q&A. So if you have a question, if our team is going to do our best to monitor the chat, but if you could put your question into the Q&A, that would be very, very helpful for us. Today, it is my honor to welcome Elder Kwak'wala and the Nawalak, Iodi.
Nawalak.
Nawalak. You
Yeah.
were such a patient and I really appreciate your understanding in my learning. Nawalak, team to this online panel. And in my comments here, I wanted to bring to everybody's attention once again that I am a language learner, and I do appreciate all the patience and understanding with my pronunciations. So Ntoix and Iodi. And Lukwil and Toix and Nsipinsku. A great big thank you to my friend Deanna Nicholson for offering that panelists introduce themselves in their voices and in their languages. So with that, I'm going to open up the space for our respected elder, Kwak'wala, known to many as he shared with me, Chief Robert Joseph, Bobby Joe, and I heard some other very heartwarming and endearing names for him as well too. I'm going to pass the virtual talking stick over to you and help us start this all off in a good way.
Thank you. Greetings, all my relatives, all of you on the screen, all of you in this Zoom, and for those who will be able to see this gathering sometime later on. I want to start by telling you that I'm speaking to you from the unceded territories of the Squamish First Nation. Been here for a while now, 2 decades. But I can never forget, and neither should any of you ever forget, the true homelands from which you all originate, in which our languages are embedded in the very territories that we possess. Kwak'wala, we are the Kwak'wala. Yak andas nuksida Kwak'wala. We speak the language Kwak'wala. That is our language. In the old days, the old people, we love to call them old people, others call them elders, and by other names, had a prayerful way of being, and they prayed at every opportunity that was offered them. And so I think it's appropriate for us to begin this really important Zoom with a prayer as our ancestors did, and turn to the Creator for guidance. This ring around my neck is a sacred, really sacred ring. It was a metaphor for the circle of life. It was used in all of our most high ceremonies in the Kwak'wala traditions. And always it was an instrument to call everyone to be a part of the sacred circle of life. So as I say my prayer in Kwak'wala and I hold this up, it'll be to invite all of you and to invite all of the language learners, language experts now and into the future to stand in the sacred life, because our work ahead of us is sacred. It's so important that we have to start from the places that we ought always to start, from a spiritual place, from the deepest essence of ourselves, our consciousness, and we call to each other and those others who are going to join the journey with us to be in the circle of life, so that we can save all of these precious languages that we speak about. Qila kesla yutiki kitame Germano kwigam gali lochkota nala dakalachus igalatskius. O matsosi da sakwe gachano kano sokwe masse kano hisile no ka ola metras kolatri da yakandas wala seganok dakalas le kyovidamas choa. Germistano, Kwak'wala, Dakalus, Kwak'wala, Osgano, Kanokache, and Eda, Casanok Yak and Daskinal. All Amtron of Bibikunia, Silokimasi, all Amtron of Iganakulas, Hema, we startly, Wakatli, the Wasta music will in a Kuno. I had all my relations.
And Toix and Samoyet, Luke will and Toix and what a beautiful way to start us all into this important time for us to learn from one another. And Kioti is going to guide us in introducing the team.
Qila kesla nachnamut was ikinokas Klitla Gachan, Klitla Nawalak Healing Society Culture Project. Ikinoka Kastuha Klus Nachnamut Hotnala Wheatla Nugwa Kiodi. Gaiklinlacha Muskmau Zawa Deno, Kluida Mamalil Klaglu Numgris, Eachlinlacha Nawalog Healing Society. First of all, I just wanted to thank the host for inviting us to partake in this wonderful discussion today. Discussion about important work ahead for many of our nations in the work of language revitalization. I just wanted to maybe give a little brief introduction into Nawalak, and then we can go on to our Nawalak members. And so Nawalak started, the idea of Nawalak started roughly 5 years ago when myself, I was a language teacher at the Kwak'wala Natwakdaug School in Port Hardy. And we had the opportunity, the wonderful opportunity of convincing the principal, my boss at the time, to allow us to bring the children from that school to their traditional homelands. And unfortunately, the history where I was teaching isn't a nice history, and the people were relocated to Port Hardy in 1964 from their original homelands. And so I thought it was super important that the children know where their villages were, and maybe it would bring some sense of pride. And to our, it wasn't a surprise, but to our excitement, we found that the kids, once we would do our 4-night, 5-day camps in their village of Blunden Harbor, that the kids were just flourishing. The kids were just in their element, out on the land, on the beaches, in the forests. And we had brought elders with us, and that is how we kind of sold it to the principal at the time, was that we were going to do language immersion as much as we possibly could out on the land. And when we were out there, the kids were, there was just something about their spirit of being back home on the land and the language that they were learning. And so, you know, it's hard to estimate or it's hard to gauge, but we all felt that their language retention during a 5-day trip was far greater than we could ever possibly replicate in a classroom setting. And so I had this experience and I thought, wow, there's something about teaching language on the land compared to in a traditional classroom type setting. And so I had this experience where I was thinking, you know, this is really, really cool. It would be awesome if we can think about this in a far deeper manner, and that maybe the possibilities are we could teach our kids on the land someday. And so I had that one experience. On the other hand, I was fortunate to be a guide for my cousin's, my brother's company, Seawolf Adventures. And I was, we would take Europeans and non-native people into the territory to witness the beautiful, you know, wildlife and scenery. And so this ecotourism company, Seawolf Adventures, I would do that during the summer months when school was over. And so I was basically educating European clientele and non-native people about our way of life and as Kwak'wala people and the surrounding territories. But what I started to hear from them was the desire to potentially spend multi-day trips with Seawolf Adventures rather than the day trips that we were able to offer. And so I thought, you know, I'm hearing this on one side of my head, and then I had that experience with bringing the kids out onto the land on the other. And I thought, you know what, if we had something out in our territory, it probably could be used year round. We probably could utilize a cabin or a lodge or something like that for language revitalization. And then we could probably use it for ecotourism in the summer months. And this was, like I said, this was about 5 years ago. The vision has formulated itself over time. And so as time progressed, the idea was, okay, that's great if we built something and we used it, but how do we pay for the programs out on the land? That was the big question, because there's always going to be an expense to get elders out onto the land, to pay for our food, pay for our transportation. How do we do that? And so the idea started to formulate that could we use, if we used the facility for tourism in the summer, could we use the profits of the tourism dollars to fuel our language and wellness programs? And so that's kind of, you know, what Nawalak is doing. At this present time, we have a construction crew at a site called Hada in the traditional territory of the Kwak'wala people, of which they are a part of the Muskamag Zawadino. And we, Nawalak, is in partnership with the Kwak'wala First Nation to build a culture camp wellness center that we will be able to house 24 teachers and students, as well as 12 staff, to be out on the land doing what we are doing. And so, I just wanted to give a little bit of history on that, and that all, you know, that whole idea of bringing our people out onto the land and knowing that the land does something to our spirit and our Kwak'wala in a healing manner. And so we are super, super blessed that through because rewinding back, I didn't know how we were going to do this. 3-4 years ago, I had no idea how this could be funded. All I knew is that we were going to do it somehow in some way. And so I just kept putting it out into the universe that we needed to have something like this, a special facility out in our territories. And how the universe works in mysterious ways, we had the blessing of being introduced to a philanthropic family who wanted to spend some of their money on wellness initiatives for First Nations people. And that is how we are now building the Nawalak facility out in Bond Sound. And so it's an amazing story. We have an opportunity to do good for our children and children yet unborn for many years to come. And at the heart of it is language revitalization. And so it was a way to bring our people together. The idea is that we would have, there's going to be sleeping quarters for 4 elders. And so there will be 4 elders at the culture camp as well. And so, I just wanted to give a little history about that. And so the 4 speakers that are coming up next are all a part of Nawalak. We had the opportunity to go in by the First Peoples Master Apprentice program. I really loved how it was organized in a way where you had apprentices working with an elder, a master, and so that was how it was designed. Could we get apprentices hired to learn our language, and then once the camp is built, could we support other language initiatives going on in our territories? And could Nawalak just support that? And so the idea is school groups and other types of groups could come to our site. We would do the whole canoeing, kayaking, hiking, rock climbing, all of those types of activities, but can we do them in our language? And so in a sense, we are just wanting to work with all of the other language champions in the Kwak'wala. We don't see ourselves as better than anybody or lesser than anybody. We just want to complement the wonderful work that is already happening in our region. And so yes, there's 3 of our young language apprentices on the call today, as well as our language coordinator. And so at this time, I'm going to pass it over to Kayasam, who is one of our young, wonderful language apprentices. So Krila Kesa, I hope I didn't mess up the whole Nawalak thing too much. Thanks. Krila Kesa.
Kayla Kessler, Nugwa Antayasam, Gai Klinlacha, Namgis Kwak'wala, Yukwalin Yalis. My name is Tayasam. My Indian name is Tayasam from my Mochit side. My English name is Kiara. I'm from Alert Bay and Fort Rupert mainly. Tayasam translates to believes with her whole heart and holding up the Creator. Am I going, or are we introducing everyone?
I think we're going through our introductions.
Okay. Hit 'em.
You like that?
Gaelic Castelchla, Melody Clin, Guide Clin Lacha, Lakeway Do, Glue Muskamar Dawi de Enu, Glue Shinket, Glue Kwak'wala. My name is Melody. I'm from the Lakeway Do, Kwak'wala, Muskamar Dawi Enu, and Shinket tribes, and I've been working with Nawalak to create a culture.
Agila Kasla, Nashnamir, Agila Kasla, Shila La Kuzgakan, Shila La Kuzgakano. Thank you for inviting me and our team here. Nugwam Gustijas, Hebmana Bumpe Hamzas, Gaitan La Pagus, Mamalekla, Namgis, Clouds, Mampila. My traditional name is Gustijas. I received that from my grandfather Basil Ambers. My mother is Hamzas, and I'm from the Kwayos, the Mamalekla, the Namgis, Clouds, and the Mampila. 5 different tribes of the Kwak'wala. I also work at Nawalak. I wasn't able to get my bio or picture ready in time, so I'm not on the poster, but I am part of the team. And I should mention I also have connections to the Tlingit and the Moche.
Qeila Kasla Gyori for that wonderful overview of the Nawalak project and explaining why we are all here, fully on board on the team, working towards the common vision of language revitalization and cultural practices. Qeila Kasla Noch Sola Kolyakwa Quin Quiliget Wakas Olek Ella Iku Swaltamus. Olek Ella Ikin Noke. Nugwa Ike Wegi Lauk. Gaitlen Lacha Scotland. Glu Quagu Namgis Mamalilikala Glu Muskamak Sawa de Enoch. Kwak'wala men Tlawinam Glu Muquin Sasam Kanat Glotwin. Lacha Awitna Gwisa Laquangan. Lach Gada Tatmas. Olek Alan Ike Noke Lachus Klitla Lagachen Kwak'wala. Arlene, First Nations Health Authority, and Chape Wellness. My heart is very happy to be invited here today to share a little bit of our stories. I wish we could share all of it. However, we only have 60 to 90 minutes. And so I would just like to say Qeila Kasla, and I would like to invite our young, incredibly inspiring, knowledgeable young people. Jody, I noticed I wasn't included as one of the young people. I'm going to get you for that later. Hey, that is all for now. I would like to turn it over to our young people.
Gaila Kesla. I just wanted to share my journey as a Kwak'wala learner. When I first, it was kind of scary for me. When I was about 8 years old, I moved away to the city, so I wasn't at home, and I didn't get what the other kids got, was Kwak'wala every day here in Alert Bay and dancing and singing. I did potlatch all the time, but coming back home when I was about in grade 12, I kind of felt a little out of place, or just didn't know as much as the rest of my friends and my cousins and my family did. So when I moved back home, I struggled a little bit. I was living on welfare. I had times where I couldn't feed myself, didn't have a lot of money, and it was a really tough period for a little bit. So I was really looking into what I wanted to do with my life, and I had no idea what I was gonna do. I was just lost. So I started applying for jobs, and I went in for a job for a secretary at one of our band offices, and I nailed that interview so well. They even hugged me after. And then I had the interview for Isalagilak School to be a cultural education assistant. And when I went in, I had no idea how to do an interview about being Bakwam. So it was my first time ever talking about myself in that way, and not being as professional of like all my skills and stuff. So when I went into that interview, I feel like I absolutely botched that interview. And I was like, you know, I'm probably not going to get that one, but I'm probably going to get the secretary. I ended up not getting the secretary. And surprisingly, I got the cultural EA at Isalagilak Elementary School. And when I first went in, I remember seeing all the youth, all the young kids in elementary school, and they're counting to 100. They know all the months of the calendar in Kwak'wala. They could introduce themselves in Kwak'wala, and that's something that I only knew a little bit about, so I felt very, very ashamed a bit. But then I realized, you know, it's a beautiful thing, and it's who I am, and I should always carry myself that way, and to not really be scared to go into your own language. You know, our people are just so loving and caring, and they're there for you when you need it. Yeah, so once I started at Nawalak school, I really felt like this is where I'm meant to be. That little tough period, I believe that this is what I'm supposed to do, and I feel like I was guided right to this place. And ever since then, learning Kwak'wala, I just feel amazing. I've made connections with elders that I didn't really have personal connections to. You know, I have aunties that I always acknowledged throughout my whole life, but now these aunties allow me to just go walk in their home, you know, and just go hang out with them. And it's a really beautiful connection having that with our elders. It's my most absolutely thing to do is just go and visit an elder and listen and see what they have to say. And when I started learning Kwak'wala, I was excited, but I was also sad because I felt like I didn't have an opportunity to learn from my grandmother who passed when I was 5, Ethel Alford. And that made me very sad, you know, just not getting the chance to learn from my own grandmother. But once I started getting to know all the elders and hanging out, you know, I realized that her memory always lives on. It's always going to live on. And it lives on through my elders, and they always embrace me. And they just fill me with knowledge of what my grandmother did. And they're just always talking about my grandmother. And it really touched my heart hearing all the wonderful stories they had to say about my grandmother. And I just really felt like they're all there, and they just come in and they just embrace you so much. And I really appreciate our elders today. Yeah, I just wanted to let people know that when you're learning your own language and you feel that you're scared, or you're scared you're going to pronounce it wrong, and just know that it's not scary. If you're trying and learning, that's great. And then it's going to be quite a bit of journey from learning, but it's the most beautiful thing when you come back and, you know, forever, like your whole life, Kwak'wala, you are Kwak'wala, you are Kwak'wala, you are your language, and it's in your blood. And just to keep trying and embrace the moments. You know, I have so many beautiful moments with my elders that I'll carry forever and ever. And I want to thank Uncle Bobby Joe. Like I said, you know, all my life I knew Bobby Joe as Bobby Joe. You know, he's the chief in the big house speaking. But now I feel comfortable where I say, you know, Uncle Bobby Joe. Is just making those beautiful connections to all your elders. But yeah, Gaila Kessler, hey, Supli Sydney, Mulledy.
Gaila Kessler. Gaila Kessler Tyson, that was really beautiful. Gaila Kessler Dauchla Namwut. I just want to start off with a prayer. Lament Hawakala. Chunuk Umpa Lacha Iki. Maya ant lachis ligamus, gach lachis gigas os, nana gige su lachis no cayus, lach gap anich a wheat naquis. He gwixi nana gige yetla ina yaki, lacha iki a wheat naquis. Tola gachano nala to heat my unhoch neat nalach, digad kluda lech yekinayach, noch lech digad kluda yekinayach sa yak semi gachanoch. Kwala it's dusino llala ik alasayaksimi o ama kwa gachanoch lacha yaksimi kax suma akus kigamesa iki kax suma ach nugwadust na chwallachwaya suma amyach idas ha kit klabi enut he So I just said the Lord's Prayer in Kwak'wala, and that's just something that I've found recently. to be very healing for my wellness in these COVID times, and just something that I say every single day when I wake up, to ask the Creator to walk closely with us and be with us and to take away sickness. And yeah, I just find it very comforting that it's been translated in a lot of different other languages, and it's a very international prayer. And so I've been finding a lot of healing from that lately. Yeah, so basically my Kwak'wala learning journey, I guess it's always just been something that I've been intertwined with, because I really just want to start off with the fact that I'm really a byproduct of my mom's efforts of Kwak'wala and her efforts of language revitalization. And that looked a lot different back in the 2000s, where it was like a lot of like language classes, like for an hour a week. And although my mom, she struggles in the language, I'm sure she wouldn't mind me saying that, because she does. And just realizing like that although she does still struggle in the language, like the efforts that she put forth when I was a little girl made a really big difference in my learning journey now, where she wouldn't care so much about Western responsibilities, where she would take us to potlatches instead of being in school. And some people kind of thought that was, she definitely got a little bit of criticism for that, like, oh, your kid should be in school all the time. But she realized the value of ceremony and the value of having her kids be there. And that's something that I'm forever grateful for that she did, especially now with COVID and we're not able to gather together. I'm just so grateful that I had those years of potlatching, that my mom really made culture and language a priority in my life. And then to even just take it a little bit further, like all that is because of our ancestors like held on so strongly to our ways and our people's culture, because they really knew there was a really truthful essence in it and the essence of our identity. So after high school, I went to UBC to study Indigenous education. And I quickly realized in Indigenous education, there's not really an Indigenous education without your language and incorporating your language in that education, because that's what our education is our language, is our ways. And so, yeah, I was lucky enough that there was a Kwak'wala class at the time at UBC. And I was able to meet with Rita Barnes and Henry Seaweed, who speaks Nak'wala, which is a dialect of Kwak'wala. And I was able to learn a lot from them. And it's one of those things where I was learning so much from them I didn't even know at the time. And now I look back and realize like, wow, that time that I had with them, I was able to learn a lot. And one of the things I take with me to this day is what Rita Barnes said to me in that class. And she said, "Hutlilala awitnakois gakutlas gachen." Like, listen to the land because it teaches us. And that's kind of become my Kwak'wala teaching model, is like listening to the land. For it teaches us, and it teaches me Kwak'wala too. And so I started just posting my Kwak'wala learning journey on Instagram, and I just found it so interesting, like the connection of media and Kwak'wala. And I just thought it was a really cool thing to put Kwak'wala on YouTube and Kwak'wala on Instagram. And now I see people are putting Kwak'wala on TikTok, which is really cool. And back in 2014, like there wasn't really a lot of people doing that. So I was really inspired by Pee Wee Alfred, who was putting a lot of Kwak'wala media. And I just thought that was a really interesting way to revitalize our language, because it was seeming like everything was becoming online. And I really wanted to showcase our language in a way that was appealing to our youth, like through Instagram, and showing like, yeah, we can be on Instagram and we can bring this into like the modern world. And so I started posting my language or our language and my learning journey on my Instagram, Language Weaver. And just knowing like 4 years of that later, how many people use my Instagram as a Kwak'wala tool, and just how much that relationship has grown between the people that follow me on Instagram and my own language journey. And it's just become its own life of its own. And so I really started to focus on, in my education, elder and youth-based education. And it really came to the fact that Indigenous language revitalization is a youth movement supported by elders for our future youth. And so I was really taking that to heart, where I'm always constantly asking our our elders what I should be teaching and how I should be delivering it, so that I'm more of a vehicle for that knowledge to our youth, and realizing like what is the essence, like why is this so important that we keep on speaking our language, and why is it so why did our ancestors hold on so hard, and why do our elders want us to learn? And it's like I was constantly told to never forget who you are and to never forget who you come from, because we're just remembering. And so I started playing around with this idea of like frequency and like the frequency of our language, and really starting to realize that our sounds and the frequency of our language was healing, and it will help us over our indigenous language learning will help us overcome past hurts, and that the power in the frequency of our languages is so powerful because it is supernatural. And that's what Nawalak means, is supernatural. And because our ancestors embodied this supernaturalness, so do we. And we have the power to heal from the past colonial traumas. And so I came back to an island after UBC to learn a bit more on the land, and everyone saying just how important the land was in our learning. And I really started to focus on clam gardens and the process of making clams, because I just found everything in Kwak'wala so interesting. And anyone, like I say this a lot, like anyone who knows me knows I'm just obsessed. Like it's really an obsession of mine. So I really started to look at clams and just how important clams were to our people. And it was another connection with my mom, because my mom's an archaeologist. And so it's a relationship of building, revitalizing our language, but also revitalizing clam gardens, which is like a really traditional way of feeding ourselves. And it was a really essential part of our people's diets. And the thing I really like about clam gardens is that even now we can see the evidence of our ancestors through these shell midden. And you walk along the beach and you see shell midden, you're like, wow, that's from our ancestors thousands of years ago. And it's just those little bits of shell midden is like our little bits of language that is like still here that we can obtain and grab. And so I started working with Nawalak to create a camp for the land. And one thing I'm specifically focusing on right now is prayer and meditation. And one thing I wanted to share with everyone was just the shift of worldview I had, because I would go to our elder, Bobby Joe, and I would say, okay, well, how do you say connect to your breath, connect to the land, connect to your body, connect to the ocean? And it came to be that it was always saying, well, instead of connecting, you're one with the ocean, you're one with the land, you're one with yourself, you're one with your breath. And it was a really monumental shift in my Kwak'wala worldview, because I realized it's not connection, it's about oneness. And the law of oneness is a really beautiful thing that's universal throughout all cultures, or a lot of cultures. And it's something that Kwak'wala is really built on, because another thing that elders always told me was, or continue to tell me, is Namants Baganama, like we're all one people. And that having the knowledge of oneness, how that helps you obtain your language learning is really valuable. So I encourage everyone to explore the idea of connection and oneness in your language. And so yeah, I really started to believe in the frequency and the healing power of Kwak'wala to heal myself and be in a different way, instead of being in an English mind and being in a Kwak'wala mind. And I did that through believing in the power of miracles, because I honestly believe that language revitalization, it's a miracle. And to give yourself the permission to believe in the power of miracles to help you, because our languages don't have to be difficult to learn. And one thing I'm really concerned about is making sure our youth know that our language isn't hard to learn, because even when I was at UBC, linguists would try to tell me like Kwak'wala is a dead language. And that hurt me. That's not what I'd see when I go home. I'd see a very, very alive language. So I believed in the power of miracles in my journey to help me tap into oneness, so that I could so I can interface with our ancestors and pick up the language from the land, and they could drop down and also give it to me. So it is a very, very spiritual way of looking at language learning that I've come to. And I find that there's definitely like a learning, memorizing part of language where it's a lot of grammar, but really making sure that our youth understand that it's not difficult for them to learn, because our ancestors would never want anything that they want for us to be difficult. So it's really just connecting to or being one with your ancestors and understanding that they want what's best for you, and that's to speak our languages with each other, because it is essentially the truth of who we are, and that's our elders and ancestors and us. Why we hold on to it so strongly is because it is the essence and is the truth of who we are. And that's why they always told us never to forget who we are, because we're not learning our languages. We're just remembering them because we spoke them in many lifetimes ago, and we'll continue to speak our language in many lifetimes further. So it's more just of a remembering, and I'm remembering who you are. And I'm Melody, I'm Melody, and Gaelic Hestachla. That's all I have to say about my language learning journey today.
Lukwil in Toix at noon, Sydney. I believe Matt is still with us.
Yep.
Yeah.
I was just waiting to get thrown on the screens, right?
There you go.
Okay. Gaelic as I want to acknowledge my coworkers here for their good words. And I'm just trying to remember here that one of the biggest teachings of my family has been that we always represent our family, and that it's important to be humble, because I've been really blessed with a lot of opportunities that I'm going to talk about here. But I've got, I think 3 of my aunts are in this chat here, so they're going to be watching me, make sure I'm humble about this. Because I really have been blessed with lots of opportunities. The first year of my life, my mom thinks I went to the United States about 12 times with the late great carver Eugene Hunt from the Hunt family. When I was 4 years old, I moved here to Alert Bay out of my own volition, out of my own choice, and attended the Tlisalagulak school, and I learned how to dance when I was there. As I moved forward, I eventually started attending what was called travel journeys, the big canoe journeys on the coast here. And all these things I'm talking about, they're all connected, because when I went on the canoe journey, I started to learn how to sing. And eventually I was, sorry, I learned how to sing, and then I started to practice with a lot of really great singers. Gyodi is a singer. He doesn't seem to mention, he hasn't mentioned it in a while, but he is a really good singer, our boss here. I've been lucky to work with William Wasden, one of our head singers. And from there, I started working with different artists. I worked with Maxine Malapy, who's a seamstress. From there, I worked with her husband, John Livingston, who was an artist. So I practiced art. And all of these things, they just build on top of each other. Because then I started learning, throughout all of that, I had been learning Kwak'wala, but it wasn't until maybe high school that I really started learning Kwak'wala with the late Dr. Trish Rosborough. We had Kwak'wala sessions in Victoria every week. They were just a no stress, no politics, fun environment to learn Kwak'wala. I've also done just about every little cultural activity I can think of. I've gone to Zawadi to make Ulagan grease. I've been very lucky. I'm just going to keep saying I'm lucky, because even though I'm so young, I've been invited to sing at the log in our potlatches, which is a really rare thing for someone my age. What I'm trying to get at here is a really old tradition of the Kwak'wala. And it may be taking me a little while, but in the old days, the young people were watched to see what they were good at, and if they were never forced to do every little thing. the old people would watch and see what they were good at, and when they found what they were good at, they would be groomed at for that role. So I've slowly found what I'm good at, and I've slowly found what I've enjoyed here. Because what my teaching is that if you teach everyone the same thing, then the youth, the new generations aren't going to need each other. If everybody knows how to do everything, why do I need him and why do I need him? But if we all have the one thing that we're really good at, and then I need him and I need him, and we all need to help each other. So over the years, I've slowly found the things that I'm good at, and even with that, there's still people I need help with, and I'm still learning. But the thing that I found that I'm really good at is learning our stories. We have a vast array of origin stories amongst the Kwak'wala. It's a little unfortunate that our storytelling has kind of died out over the last couple of years, but they're still there and they're still recorded, just waiting to be brought back out. So it's taken me a while, but I finally found what I'm good at and what I really enjoy. And I think that's the biggest thing, is you have to enjoy what you do. You have to enjoy learning language. You have to make it fun. It can't be a drag, because no one's going to want to do it. Like I said, with that Kwak'wala group, there was no stress. Sometimes we would do the same thing every week. Sometimes we wouldn't start for 20 or 30 minutes because we were just visiting. These were just fun, easy things that people enjoy doing. Yeah, my story really goes all over the place, because I've found most of the things that I've done, I've just really enjoyed. It's a shame I can't do them all the time, but I'll just focus on the things that I really enjoy. And I just really want to thank Nawalak for the opportunity. I've been blessed here again, because I have just one grandparent left, my great grandmother, who's a fluent Kwak'wala speaker. And by working at Nawalak, I've been gifted the time and the opportunity to start to work with her, my last grandparent. Yeah, I think that's about it for me.
And Toyixon, Matt, I thank you. And Toyixit Newsome, to the team for sharing such inspirational stories and backgrounds to how you have come to this beautiful multi-generational space to keep your language moving forward, and all the beautiful gifts that are within the language as well too. I was hoping that we could, something that came to mind, Coyote, was yesterday you shared a little bit about when you and Deanna came together. And I wonder if you might, and how you had the vision for the idea of a program coordinator for the mentor apprentice teams. And if at that time when you are sharing that, maybe bring us back so that Deanna could have some space to share a little bit more of some other information she might want to share in that role with as well too. Does that sound?
Yeah, sure.
Could we get a pin on Coyote and he'll sort of introduce his, yeah. And Toyixon, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Arlene. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, we're just in scramble mode, but we always knew that there's just so much going on that we needed somebody that could focus on language revitalization, because my time was getting really stretched thin, I guess. And so we were super blessed that we have amazing language champions in our Kwak'wala, and Deanna is one of them. And she at the time she was working at UVic. She still is working at UVic for now until we can grab her full time. But yeah, we were, we posted a position, and we're just super blessed that we have somebody from our nation that has a master's degree in language revitalization. And so it just fit basically like a glove for Nawalak. She's from our territory. She knows the young people, and she often talks about these young people as being just like her a few years ago, and how inspired she is of these young people. And so, when we were thinking up what it could look like, it was designed for 4 or 5 day, 4-night and 5-day camps, very similar to what we were doing when I was teaching in Port Hardy. And we were realistic in knowing that the kids coming in aren't going to learn language in 5 days. The program was really designed around our apprentices, because our apprentices are going to have to carry out the language Monday to Friday. And then another group comes in. They're going to have to redo it Monday to Friday, Monday to Friday, Monday to Friday, as different school groups rotate in our camp. And so the school groups will get tons and tons and tons of language, but it's unrealistic to think they're going to become fluent. It was designed to create a space where can we have Kwak'wala spoken constantly for apprentices to benefit. And so we believe that this model can and will be successful. And so with Deanna's help and expertise in this area, it just took the weight off of a lot of our shoulders, and we continue to look at ways to work with and existing programs in our region. And we're just super excited to have this opportunity, and we will succeed. We don't ever put it into the universe that we want to succeed or maybe we will succeed. We just continually talk about it in a positive frame of mind that, yeah, this is what we're doing and we're going to be successful. We're going to speak fluent Kwak'wala at our site, and our kids will eventually too. So with that, Ika Wegilog, can you please say a few words on behalf of yourself and Nawalak? Qila Kesla.
Qila Kesla, Kolyauk, Kiori. I told you I was going to get you back. Olek Alan Llangya a kan gliglola. Du kolat inclus lacha chat. My goodness, I might get a little choked up here because I really miss all of our relatives, and I see a lot of your names in the chat, and I just want to let you know that I'm so happy that you're spending this hour or so with us today. I see our relatives in Kinkum, Guai, Yalise, midway down the island, and I just seen my friend pop up from Philadelphia, Yo Brian. I just want to start by saying, like Jody mentioned, I've been very passionate about learning our Kwak'wala for almost all of my life, and like he said, I've the young people here on the call that I have the privilege to work with, it's just an absolute thrill and a joy to be able to share this time and this work with each of you. And I'd like to mention that there are 3 of our young people that weren't able to make it today. Gloria Kwak'wala Hunt and Peter Javier Jr. I call him Pita because he shared with me that he doesn't yet have a Kwak'wala name. And then also, actually, wait, no, those are the only two missing. Oh, look, I just included myself as a young person. I thought we had 6. Anyways, I wish I had more time because I've been at it for over 20 years to be able to share with you all of the ways and the strategies and the activities that I've tried to help our mother tongue language come back to me. And I would like to share with everybody here that Melody, Sydney, is she's such a sweet and such an old soul because she's constantly reminding me and all of us that our language, Kwak'wala or Kwak'wala, however you refer to it, is not foreign to us. It's not something that we don't know. And it's not something that is difficult to learn or something that we can't learn because it is us. It is in us. It is in our being, in our souls. We are old souls. And it is just simply something that we have to remember. And yes, we need help remembering. And that is why we're reaching out to Kwak'wala and a whole lot of our other elder people. And I want to call them and old people. And that's not a bad thing because it is a privilege to be able to grow old. And so I don't mean anything ill by that. So fast forward a couple of decades, and I joined the Nawalak team because I believe in the vision. I believe in the goal that one day we'll be walking around Hada speaking fluent Kwak'wala again. And wouldn't that be wonderful? That is the goal, and that is why I came on board. Since joining the group, and this is new to me in my 20-year journey of learning the language, I really wanted to focus on prayer as well, like Melody mentioned, and speaking words of gratitude to our Creator, but in our language, not in our borrowed language. And so that's what we've been focusing on. And since I've been trying, and since Uncle Bobby Joe has been leading us, helping to guide us, I'd have to say that it has completely changed. It's changed my days, and it's changed my outlook on life, our worldview. It's just completely changed what I focus on. And I shared this with the group that, every night I go to bed and I say my words to the Creator. And every morning when my eyes create open, I say them again. And I can't tell you how many nights now where I've had our coming to me in my sleep, in my dreams. I've seen so many of my grandparents and aunties and uncles, those who have all since passed on, and they're coming to me now. And some of them are speaking to me in our language. And I wake up both sad and happy, overjoyed, sad because I haven't seen them for so long, but overjoyed because I know they're coming to me because we have to be on the right path in the work that we're doing right now for our language. And so I would like to share a little bit of the words of gratitude that I've been working on. And this is for our Kwak'wala people. I share this with you because it has impacted me so deeply, and it has completely changed the way that I see our language and the way I approach remembering more of it. Qila kasla yuthi kwile nukwanoch. Qila kasla la akus gwihida gachanoch ochda ikech nalach. Wala sanoch mutlas genoch ni noch solak oskol yakwa. Ich gera glich salagis bak Kwak'wala. Kluma ik sukochta noch sola bagwanama. Something keeps telling me to say that. I don't know what it means. Otman olak Ellen mutla kochta nachwa I achalaglawen kanoch yakda sich. Ik ja kila lachgen natlemutech. Lachgera kluma litlachwala. O an qila kas chus hi kwile nukwan. Qila kasla. Qila kasla. Ham. And what I just shared there in our language is just my immense gratitude to our Creator, the one who created us, for all of the things that I do have. I said that I was very, very grateful, have a very full heart for our Noch Sola Kwak'wala, our wise old people that are still here with us to come and teach us and lecture us about the language and in the language. And then I mentioned that our wise one, our old man here today, is very good looking. I like to include that line. Uncle Bobby Joe may or may not have taught me that. And then I said to the Creator, the one who created us, I am also very grateful for everyone here that comes to work with us and with me for our language. And I said, what can I say, Creator, besides to thank you? Please look after my Nathnamut, the ones that I am one with, for they are truly precious. They are very loved. And that is all. And like I said, I go over and over that in my head before I close my eyes at night and when I first wake up. And it has really been life-changing. 1:08 p.m. I guess what I do want to share with you about my personal learning. I'm a language learner. I'll be a lifelong language learner. Is that, I carry many names. Deanna Ellen Louise, Dee, Mom. And if you were to call me by any of those names, I instantly reminisce about my 3 grandmothers, because that is who I am named after. And I remember how much they loved me, and none of them are no longer here with us. And I remember how much I laughed with one of them. And I remember, I just remember the one grandmother who, before I knew anything, because I was born in Vancouver and then moved to Alert Bay, she would drill me on, Kwak'wala words, and she would force me to dance with her in the kitchen. And at the time, I used to feel so silly and a little bit embarrassed. However, it is by her, making me learn our dances and hear our songs that, it really grew my love for our language and our culture. And so as a Kwak'wala person, throughout our lifetime, we get many traditional names placed on us at different stages of our lives. And it's something that we hold dearly. And so as a very little girl, my Dawson family placed on me Gilgamlichilauk. And then a little bit older, my Beans family and my Cook family, 2 different times, of course, also put upon me the name Kwak'wala. And then sometimes people also call me Mrs. Kwak'wala, and that's just because I'm the wife of Kwak'wala. And most recently, I'm able to carry the name Ikiawegilok. And if I was to loosely translate Ikiawegilok into English, it could mean something along the lines of maker of good things or maker of beautiful things. But the way that I like to interpret it, sometimes a little bit deeper, is made to be good. And when I think of it that way, it's a gentle reminder of a good way to be. So when you call me Ikiawegilok, it means a lot to me, and it hits me in my heart. And so our traditional names for us Kwak'wala are not merely just names. They're not just labels that we call each other by. They have so much, they connect us to our ancient histories. They can connect us to the traditional territories of where we come from. They connect us to our worldviews and the way we think and the way we see the world around us. And they connect us to our ancient stories and our traditional songs and dances. Because the songs and dances are reenactments, or they're the retelling of our ancient history. Again, it's not just a song, and it's not just a dance, and it's definitely not just a show. They're reenactments of our ancient history. And equally important, our Bakum names, traditional names, can connect us to each other. And so since I started working with the Nawalak group, I've been really making an effort, and I don't remember all the time, but I'm really making an effort to address each other by our glekam, our traditional names. And I'm also working on addressing each of us using terms of respect and endearment. And so, I call Uncle Bobby Joe and others Noch Sola. That's what I call him. I call him my wise one. And, Maya Ant, my respected one. Or Namoyut, one that I am one with. And what I'm finding is that it's truly deepening the connection between myself and all of us in the circle. Instead of saying, hi Kiara, how are you today? If I say, yo Namoyut, Wixas Kwak'wala, it just connects us so deeply on a much respected level. And it directs the way that we interact with each other from that point moving forward. And I just feel like that's really beautiful. And so lastly, because I'm getting a little lamkhwa, getting kind of dry. Our traditional names for the Kwak'wala in our language are constructed. Generally, you'll find a root word in there, followed by either 1 or 2 suffixes or many suffixes, if we're going to use linguistic terms. And if you see the length of my name there, you can see that it's quite lengthy, and that's because it's made up of a root and multiple word parts. And of course, the root has a meaning, and of course, each of the miniature word parts all carry meaning. And it all gives clues as to who you are and who you belong to and where you come from. And so a traditional name for us Kwak'wala is really only the tip of an iceberg of revealing a very rich and complex history. That is all I wish to share today.
Toix, and I'm so grateful for the teachings you're sharing with us, of the interconnection of all of the generations that you're including in your work, and also with the world around us as well too. I'm so grateful that you're approaching it in this way, and also willing to share with us. And I am mindful of the time, so I don't want to waste any time in opening up the floor for some final comments from our respected Samoyed, who we are so grateful to have here today. Chief Robert Joseph. The virtual talking stick is in your hands, my friend.
Tila Kesla, thank you. I want to start by just saying how proud I am of these young people who have made presentations here today. I'm deeply moved by the degree of insight they have around language and their attitudes toward language. It really, all of the things I've heard this afternoon speak to the element of spirit, spiritual ways. And when I think about language, it will be in that context, learning, relearning the spiritual ways that are embedded in all of the things that we do and are. When we talk about territories, Kwak'wala, when we talk about laws and economy, the environment, they all are, and when we talk about culture and kinship and relationships, they all are in this language, becomes a crucible for all of that. And because as Indigenous people everywhere, we had that mindset that we took into context the entire creation, along with the minute, infinite, smaller life forms, and that we had responsibility to each of that. It could only be translated or communicated in all of our specific languages, in this case, Kwak'wala. So I think that when we think about Kwak'wala, it's more than the mechanics, it's more than the words. We have to believe that everything we are, everything we have been, somewhere in our language is embedded that experience, that base of knowledge from which we will continue to grow and evolve. And that's how important language is. It's all encompassing, and we should think about it in that context. That's why so many little kids were thrown into these residential schools to destroy languages. And here we are in this moment, this most critical moment in our lives, where lots of the languages stand on a precipice of disappearing. And we have the will and the desire and the spirit to save this language. If we save the language, we save the Indigenous people. That's how important this work is.
Lukul and Toix. And yesterday, you were sharing a beautiful story of speaking to Kwak'wala, to the ocean, as your. I wonder if it might be okay if you share that here now. We have some time.
Oh, all right.
It was just such a beautiful, it was so heartwarming as a, yeah.
Language for me over the course of my lifetime has been a real enigma, maybe that's the word. I don't know if that's the word, but a challenge sometimes. When I, in my youth, I grew up only knowing Kwak'wala, and then of course ending up losing it in an institution that I attended for 11 years. And during all of that time, because we weren't allowed to speak our languages, and in a particular school I went to, on the playground, there were 7 distinct languages. In the 11 years that I was there were no more indigenous languages spoken. The only language we heard was English. So when I left that school and I got married and when I moved to the city, I discovered that I was ashamed to talk this language that I had been born into, and I didn't talk it for a very, very, very long time. And then as I kept moving on in the progression of my life, I realized that the language was not hardly been spoken by anybody, then that would disappear. And soon I recognized that I was among a small core group of what they consider fluent speakers. And then I began to become really worried. I knew that somehow language was important. I didn't know the full extent yet. And I began to think, oh my God, there will be one day when I'm going to have to go and stand by the ocean and babble to the ocean, because there would be no one left to understand or hear this really noble, ancient, honorable language that brought us all up in our lives. And that's how important it has been. So, in this moment, the state of our languages, of course, are precarious, they're scary. In some cases, it may be the last chance for us to save some of our languages. And I think that's really just calls us to do more than we can. So what we need to do is to recognize that we need each other. We have to support each other. We have to cheer each other on, share our knowledge, honor all of the dialects, because every dialect is sovereign to the group who own the language. And they are responsible for revitalizing those sections of those languages. But we have to respect that we are different and diverse, and our approaches will be different and diverse, but we can still share the knowledge that we know about how we can encourage young people to learn the language, to speak it again. We have to recognize there is no right, there is no wrong. And when our languages are restored, we are restored. We are going to be mentally, physically, spiritually restored when we can speak this language again.
Lukwil Toix and Smoiget. I really appreciate that you shared that story, and it's a beautiful way of sort of helping us come to a close in this. We have a few more minutes left. I noticed that some of the team have been answering questions that are coming in through the Q&A, and thank you so much, Lukwil Toixit Newsome, Sydney and Kiera for responding to those questions. Something that comes to mind in hearing the overview, and it's such a brief overview, I wish I could hang out all the time with you cats in your work, but something that just keeps ringing, coming forward is how you're working all together in a way that is growing and expanding. You're considering capacity and how to keep that idea of capacity building in mind with your visions and goals that you have, that you're honoring and respecting the where we are right now, where we've come from, and also those goals that you have as well too, which is just such a I'm so grateful that you're able to take time to come and share all these beautiful teachings with us today. I think the ocean heard you, Simoigit, and is breathing. It sure seems to me like the waves are breathing life into Kwak'wala for this beautiful team and project that you've been working on. So we have about 5 minutes. So if there's any other questions, it looks like we're good there. I think I will leave it in your hands, Kwak'wala, however you feel appropriate to close us off in a good way. If you have a story, song, whatever you feel is appropriate. The virtual talking stick is back to you to close us off.
Thank you. I'm reminded of a couple of people who were champions in my life. My grandma on my father's side, and another person, a great chief who became a mentor of mine. And through all of my struggles in life, and they continue, struggles never end. They always go on. But through all of the most difficult times in my life, there were a couple of lessons that I learned from these two beautiful people that carried me through the darkest hours, the moments of despair and brokenness that I went through. And in two words, those two people left with me forever. And it was in my consciousness when I remembered at my worst times those words that I heard from these beautiful people. And that they were, and I'll say it in Kwak'wala first. I am nothing, my monumental one. There'd be a slight pause. If you were not here. And that was my granny's words. And then there was one day I went to potlatch in the village at Kinkham, and Chief Tom Dawson was a speaker, great orator. And I heard him as I was sitting there saying to the congregation, the throng of people, we are more than driftwood. We are all have purpose, he said. So I remember those two things as values to carry forever in whatever we do. First, that you're valuable. All the language teachers, all the language learners, all of our people are valuable, and we all have purpose. And we're going to have this new tool called language revitalization, spurring us back on to embracing who we are naturally, who we are as people with our histories and traditions and protocol and everything about us. And language is about all of those things. And it's the best way to imbue in our minds the spirit of the people for where you come from. And I think that's really, really important. So I'm going to say a closing prayer in Kwak'wala, just where you are. You won't understand my words, but you can have your own words, your own prayer in your own mind about what it is that is really important, what's dear to you, and what will help us moving forward. You must go to no sakwa yo ta yak and dasher you cool it no. Kwak'wala la gachno this legano alle khida kayas ka da khesno yak and das. Kafilo promas no nusno sasma yak and ala such what you like no we garat la gachno. I have my wisla wach and wachtem all my relations. Thank you.
Local Twix at noon, Samoygat. Twix at Newsome to all of the panelists today. I raise my hands in respect to all of your good work and your voices for sharing with us today. Luholtka Goru, my heart is just swelling with happiness. And Lukwal Toixit Newsome to all of the attendees that joined us today. Really appreciate that you all took time to join us in hearing the beautiful teachings that are coming from Kwak'wala speaking territory. Just want a little bit of housekeeping at the end. The webinar is being recorded again and will be available. And then also too, there's a survey that will go out, and we appreciate feedback so that we can keep working at these webinars. It's important to have space for these important dialogues, so we appreciate the feedback. The next session is next Thursday, April 22nd, same time, 12 to 1:30. And just in final comments, this Zoom and this online space, sometimes isn't the best. One silver lining that surfaced for me is the space to access online Somalia. And I'm so grateful for this teaching that came from Elder Sarah Booth. And I'll share it with you, is Toixit Newsome. Ada and Hlodism, Anna Ama Hakathelsism. I thank and respect you all for all of your good work. Gilks Amaniskin, and we don't have a word for goodbye. In Demalgik Needsinsum, I will see you all again. Toixit Newsome, thank you everybody so much.